All right, guys. Better late than never. How are y'all doing? We got a little bit of a sun shower going on here, so I'm trying to avoid too much of the rain. It'll pass. Just like, when you get like one single cloud, that's pouring it down on you. So today, we got the white shipment of empathy wine from Gary Vaynerchuk. So this is like a fun little thing I've subscribed to. Most of the wine that I get, I don't really do wine subscriptions, even though I think that there are some that are very good. My dad does one, and being with the family a lot, we share quite a bit of the wine. But I like doing the empathy stuff. I have, like I've mentioned before, I have a couple different connections with Gary V. Most largely my trainer, Mike Vacanti. But at any rate, it's a nice thing to look forward to. I like the simplicity. It's all direct from farmer. It's not like a big agribusiness thing. The wine's organic, and it's just a rosé, a white, and a red. Now I'm sure he'll expand it over time a little bit. Maybe have two reds first. Gradually move out there. But you know, the wine is it's really good. It's really good, and I don't know the varietals. Uh, it tastes to me like there's some Sauvignon Blanc in it, but it's a blend. It's definitely a blend, and they don't disclose what's in the blend. So I don't know, guys. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but it's delicious. It's got high acidity, which I love for a wine, and it's not too high alcohol content, which is pretty good for a California wine. They can tend to get pretty big. I think a lot of this wine is actually sourced not simply from Napa area. They're from I think some of it's closer to like Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo, and that sort of area, which is, by the way, a very big. It's a very, very big growing location for wine in California, and I'm excited about it because a lot of the big stuff in Napa, Sonoma is just so ridiculously expensive, and there's a lot of potential in this sort of Santa Barbara area. So, anyway, guys, it's good to be here. Good to be here. I titled this video today "The Last Full Measure." And titled The Last Full Measure because I don't know if you guys are familiar with, oh man, what is his name? He's a historian, and he wrote a three-part history of the Civil War. And the first one was called Gods and Generals, which was made into a movie. It wasn't such a good movie. I mean, I liked it, but I understand why it got panned critically. Um, the second one, uh, the Killer Angels, was Gettysburg, became Gettysburg, which is phenomenal. I mean, one of the if you're a guy and you haven't watched Gettysburg, you gotta watch it. It's a reenactment, but it's like so it's like actually everybody who's in the battles are reenactors, and it's so well done. And if you're a guy, just like the emotions of brotherhood and courage and heroism and being on both sides of the battlefield, but Gettysburg was a tipping point, right? Now the last movie, and if Gods and Generals had been a better movie and they had more funding, they would have produced the last movie of the last of the books, which is called The Last Full Measure, which is the end of the Civil War. Now, the end of the Civil War after Gettysburg was a fight. I mean, Gettysburg was July 4th, 1863. It was actually a 3-day battle, but ended on July 4th. And the war went on for another almost 2 more years after that. Now, so there's some. It's not going to go on 2 more years for us. You could say probably that turning point happened a little bit ago, but I really feel like at this moment, this is the last full measure, and the solstice was the transition point for us. So we're going to talk about a couple different things here, a couple little small things that happened over the week, but I want to start this off with like on the big topic here, which is Trump and his strategy. Now, I've been talking a little bit more recently about it, but honestly, guys, I just don't really like getting involved with political prognosticating because it's an industry that is just rife with um, I was gonna say grifters. There's plenty of that, but just like I almost feel like you get bad at commenting on politics when that's all you do, because you get so tied into the news cycle, you get so tied into subtle shifts in a tactical situation that you miss the bird's eye view. It's like a lot of these political pundits are kind of like people who you would say in a battlefield. Let's continue with like Gettysburg. Let's say that they are a political observer who is they're a reporter who's on the field with a regiment. Let's say they're on the field of battle, and they can see maybe what's happening in that situation. So they can see maybe one side's getting a lot of fire put down on it. But the problem is that they are in that one location. They are not on the top of the hill where the general is, who can see the entire battlefield. So while that political correspondent or pundit, right, is there experiencing the sort of action, so to speak, they're going to think, oh man, so Trump is getting killed right now. Things are looking so bad because there's a regiment, let's say, that's in a position which is designed from a strategic sense to draw fire. Because by drawing fire, by drawing enemy concentration in that location, the enemy opens itself up for flanking, for instance. Let's just I'm not a military strategist here, but I'm trying to help you to visualize this. And these guys, they're there, and then they've got their Twitter and everything, and so they're out and they're talking about how things are so bad. Trump looks weak, blah blah blah. Meanwhile, they have like a bloated Alec Baldwin face. They've got they just look ridiculous. They look ridiculous, and they sound ridiculous. They sound hysterical. It's really funny to me how hysterical all these political people get all the time, which is why they're not men of action. They're people who just hang out by the sidelines. So I don't really like talking about this stuff, but I feel like it's really important to just help us to see the bird's eye view here. Whenever Black Lives Matter, whenever Antifa, whenever they tear down another statue, I love it. I love it. Not because I love the desecration of the statues. I think it's disgusting. But from the purpose of this entire fight, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. A couple of years ago, I think it was maybe back in 2017. Back in 2017, John Oliver made some sort of usual gaslighting when Trump was talking about them pulling down statues back then. He was saying how Trump was saying they're going to be pulling down Washington and Jefferson next. And John Oliver, usuals. Snocky, I'm a snocky fellow. I'm a third right comedian. Really, late night show. Oh, sorry, the accent's terrible, guys. But you get what I'm trying to say. Just acting like a little, he looks like a penis. I mean, he looks like a penis with glasses. And he's up there, and he's talking about oh yeah, Trump. Oh yeah, they're going to tell, this is like he's being inflammatory, right? And of course, that's exactly what's happening now, because the issue, what the objective is to try to, it's to try to erase history. It's a cultural revolution. And in the case of these radicals, it's really just blatantly anti-white. It's not pro-black, it's anti-white. Doesn't matter if they were Confederate. They could be Ulysses Grant, right? His statue was torn down recently. In Philadelphia, just across the river from me, I forget the guy's name, but they completely vandalized a statue of a guy who was a Quaker abolitionist who gave most of his fortune to abolition, right? So let's drop this ridiculous stuff that the statues are, symbolic. We don't want to support, Confederate. This is all ridiculous. It's everything. They just want to get rid of everything. They want to erase all of the prior history, everything that has happened throughout the legacy of the country in the West. Now, okay, whatever. So why do I not care about this? Because let them do that. Let them tear down statues of Washington. Do you understand how that feels to even people who would have supported the movement? It looks completely alienating. It's completely alienating. And when the mayors of those cities, like in Seattle, they allow literally have an anarchist commune where people are getting killed and robbed and raped regularly. By allowing this, you are completely letting them destroy themselves. Loki, who I always love Loki Julianus's takes. He's not a very friendly guy, but he's sharp. I mean, he's really sharp. And he made such a good point today. It's like you have people who are like, Trump's weak, he's not going out there and trying to send in the National Guard to protect these statues. Why would he do that? Why on earth would he do that? Someone explain to me, besides for your own emotional gratification, where that makes any sense for him. He sends the National Guards into a liberal city. It's a firestorm situation, right? You're going to go block the mob, which is being bankrolled. So they are out there to get violent. And almost certainly, as Loki pointed out, there's going to be some CIA guy there ready to shoot a protester so that it's this false flag situation and it looks like the National Guard did it. Looks like Trump did it. So why would he put himself in a situation where there are so many things that could go wrong? People like it just I'm not a master strategist here, but the simplicity of people's mind is sometimes overwhelming. How they just think that the response is to react. By not reacting to it and just making some comments and letting them go further and further and further to the extreme, they have no one that they can actually go against. They're looking for someone to attack, right? Understand this, okay? This is because we're moving to a higher vibration. They are looking for someone to react to. They are looking for the guy in the MAGA hat. They're looking for, the militarized, the Trump, the National Guard. They're looking for someone who is going to stop them so they can fight against them so that then they can feel justified in what they're doing. Because no one is actually trying to engage with them, except for a couple of people who are maybe, maybe they have the right intentions, but they're being quite foolish to try to go against a mob. They're going after old statues. They're taking down statues. They're even killing their own people because they pull a statue down on one of their own people. I mean, this is how dumb they are. So this is a great thing. They have nothing left to do but get more and more extreme. The revolution always consumes itself. Okay, so I wanted to put this in bigger perspective for people because they get so negative about what they see. But I guess it's because a lot of people don't have a good connection to the, I guess you could call it the astral, right? The ether, the psychology of what's going on. I can tell you guys that I put out that tweet. It was on June 5th, very, very late on June 5th. And I said, the offensive stalled, the energy is shifting. Now, people agreed, but then it was like, well, wait, did it really shift? Because the next 2 weeks, this stuff was still going on. But I didn't say that it had fully reversed yet. I said that it had stopped. There was no more of an offensive. They were not gaining any more ground. And since then, it's been a deteriorating position. They've almost been sieged. It's almost been like they're in a siege. Like they've been surrounded and we're not attacking, but we've surrounded them and we're letting them deteriorate internally. And that is what has happened. Now we are starting to see the position degrade. I have not met anybody now. I have plenty of liberals in my life, right? People are not like enthusiastic about supporting this stuff anymore. They're not enthusiastic about supporting it. They're actually embarrassed. A lot of them are pretty embarrassed because at first it was like they were trying to say, oh, yeah, well, some of the protesters were going after the wrong statue. Now it's like everything. It's like they're going after everything. And it's like, well, awkward position to be in, right? Awkward position to be in. Okay, so I'm zooming out on that. Now we have the solstice. Now, this is a very, very profound astrological event. Okay, I'm not going to go into all the details of it because, frankly, I'm not an astrologer. If you want to get astrology, you got to go to Paul Publisher. Paul Publisher. I actually get monthly astrology readings from Paul because he's so good. He's so good. And he's at that point where he's so good, he doesn't quite know how good he is. So make sure you reach out to him if you're looking for some of that. Hello from New Jersey. Hello from New Jersey. So, point here, right? So, I don't think it's a coincidence that Trump launched his campaign, this new campaign, this new offensive, you might say, this new offensive on the solstice. Now, some people were saying to me, well, Pat, he actually had it on Friday. He actually had it on Friday, and he moved it to Saturday only after because of Juneteenth. Yeah, I understand. I understand that's how it looks. Okay, I knew that Juneteenth existed because Google put it in my calendar. But I grew up, we went through all the regular stuff with Martin Luther King, all the standard history. When I was at Penn, I had to take literally like another American history course. Fortunately, it was like a technicality. I had to take it just to get a credit. And yeah, that's Paul, by the way. That's Paul right there. So you see at Paul Publisher. So I mean, my father's tons and tons and tons of background in American history. I mean, I don't need to even, probably didn't even have to go to take to school. Like I'd have to do it in high school because there was so much of it discussed in my home. I did very well in high school, but I had to take it as a credit at Penn because they didn't accept my credits from high school. Whatever. The point of this is that I had to take an American history course based on Howard Zinn's book, which is basically a socialist revisionism of American history. So I understand the kind of crap that they teach people, but most of what that course based on Howard Zinn's work is based on is basically about all the people who were victimized by the creation of America, right? So the point of saying this stuff is that I'm very well versed in African American history, and I'm not even saying this in a diminishing standpoint. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we have to learn about it because a lot of terrible shit happened to African Americans. One of the reasons that the community is so messed up, it's not really. I mean, you can talk about Great Society, you can talk about all these debating about the social programs, but a really important thing to understand is that there is so much trauma in the African American community because of what happened to them during slavery that is really in their DNA. And so we have to be empathetic about it. They also have to take ownership. It's their community, and they're not going to get better unless they take ownership. There's actually nothing on a deeper level. There's nothing that we can support, but fundamentally, like anybody's healing process is their own. That's a personal choice, right? That's a community choice. But I mention all of this stuff because I never heard of Juneteenth. Okay, Juneteenth is like a new created holiday. All right, and I guarantee you that Trump has this thing on Friday, Juneteenth. He's like, people are saying I shouldn't do it on Juneteenth. It's like this is a holiday that nobody knew about. I'm sure most black people didn't know about it. Okay, but what did it allow him to do? It allowed him basically to create a new holiday. He actually made the entire right acknowledge the existence of Juneteenth and turning it legitimately into a holiday. It would never have been actively celebrated as a holiday if he hadn't done that. I mean, they could have put it on calendars, but it would have been like, people wouldn't have acknowledged it. But because he did that, not only but this put him in a much better position with the African American community because he basically can be called the president that first acknowledged Juneteenth and turned it into a holiday. Okay, people don't understand that because they want to believe that he's dumb still, because he plays dumb because of the art of war. Meanwhile, his position continues to improve, but whatever. I don't want to get down that path. The point is that this was planned. It was planned to set on Juneteenth and then schedule it for the next day. That was always the plan. I guarantee you that was always the plan. Guarantee. Why would you host it on a Friday versus a Saturday? A Saturday, you're going to get so many more people going to it. Like, why would you do it on a Friday deliberately unless you were going to reschedule it? So, okay. Anyway, so that was some of the big overview stuff. Let's talk about a couple random things here. So this is a fun fact. We've talked about the vaccines, right? We talk about vaccines. I'm a white privileged liberal. Awesome. 30% of infant deaths down. I don't know if you guys saw that. 30% of infant deaths are down across the board with children. It's really interesting. You know why that's really interesting? Because since COVID, this is since COVID, by the way, 30% of infant deaths are down since COVID. Now, that's not because COVID's healing babies. It's not because COVID's healing babies. What it seems like is it's because kids have not been going in for their vaccines. They've not been going in for their vaccines because you're not going to the doctor's office because of COVID outbreaks. So all of the wellness checks for kids haven't been happening for the last 3 months, and the death rate among children has dropped 30%. Can you believe this? All right, this is like, even I'm trying to still really wrap my head around the significance of this. Now, of course, let's wait. We can get some more confirmation, but we already knew about what was in the vaccines. We already had this stuff all suspected. But this is really jarring, guys. It's really jarring. I mean, how can you explain it? How can you explain it any other way? 30% drop. It's not like 5%. You could say it's a rounding error. You could say this or that. 30% of kids have not died, that would have died, since children have pretty much stopped getting wellness checks. I mean, yeah, I'm looking for anything to confirm my bias. I wasn't looking for this. Like, I didn't, like, vaccines are not my big point. I'm not like an anti-vaxxer. It's not been my shtick. Some people, that's their focus, and it's cool. I've been very curious, and I've had an open mind about it. But this is really, like, crazy. I mean, I would never have expected it even to be that bad, to be honest. But, so that was interesting. Another thing, there's a hospital in Brazil. So, we talk a lot about America and the stuff going on here. Which, by the way, guys, this sun shower has not stopped, which is pretty nuts. I don't know it's like, just, I feel like it's like Winnie the Pooh, old Winnie the Pooh, where like the cloud is just over your head the entire time, and they're just pouring down. So we've had all this stuff going on. Everyone's very familiar with the governors and Trump and all the issues there. But another country where this has been going on, which you may have been familiar with, is Brazil, right? Bolsonaro. And it's probably even worse in Brazil. Bolsonaro has had the governor of, I think, Sao Paulo state and Rio. So he's been basically fighting with this. And Baps talked about it a bit. He's discussed these different things going on. But hello. So you know about this, right? So Bolsonaro has been kind of at odds, and the governors have been basically trying to create economic catastrophe in the biggest states, which are still like, all right, I'm being a little mixed up here. Brazil has been a cabal-owned country for almost 20 years. Okay, it got so bad, the corruption got so bad that the president got impeached along with many of the members in Congress. Okay, so Bolsonaro, who's really like a man with his own party, right? Definitely on the right. He wins the presidency back in 2017, I believe. Maybe 2018. It's been a while, but 2017, 2018, he wins the presidency. And he's like the Trump of Brazil, basically. So they're doing the same stuff to him that they're doing to Trump in America. Now, one of the things that happened is Bolsonaro's encouraged people. It's Latin America, a little bit more of the direct confrontation. And so people broke into this hospital, which the regional government was claiming, that there were 2,000 COVID cases, 500 dead. And so they busted in there, and they found that there was pretty much nobody there. Like, the entire thing was made up. And so I mention this because there were things that were happening in the beginning with COVID. Now, to what extent it was, we may never know exactly what happened. They may have, like Loki, for instance, speculated that there was a plague outbreak in certain locations that they were passing off as COVID. We may never know exactly what's happening. The hospital wasn't exactly, the hospital construction wasn't even finished. Okay. So, but I point this stuff out because, like, in the beginning, like, there were real things to worry about with COVID. Okay. There were real things to worry about. We didn't know, and there was a lot of mixed information going around. But now the information is just like, it's all over the place. It's all over the place. It's kind of whatever they want it to suit. The data is just completely garbage. And this is an example of why the data is garbage, which is why you have people who, they mean well, but they are the very, 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 linear thinkers who they take information given to them and they process it and put it out. It's like a Nate Silver kind of thing. They don't question assumptions. They say, if this is the data, then here's what's going to happen. If this is the data, then here's what's going to happen. But it's junk in, junk out, right? Junk in, junk out. So we're hearing here, the whole hospital was a fraud. The Rio's governor will be impeached over it. Maybe. I hope so. I hope so. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, the corruption going on here. But this is what I'm saying, guys. It's going to happen. It's got to happen. I mean, it's got to happen before the fall. We've got to get some degree of resolution, which brings us to the other thing. Actually, hold on. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I've heard the same thing. Number goes up big time. Blah blah blah. I mean, it's just garbage, guys. It's garbage. It's garbage. But there's people who are still in fear, in serious fear around it. And, the very, very much more liberal people in my family, mostly, there are actually some who are technically conservative who are really afraid too. But it's difficult trying to navigate. I mean, a lot of them, they're good people. They mean well. Some, of course, are a little bit more sanctimonious than others. But even regular moderates, like moderates or liberals, they're kind of like, they're not maybe going so far as me with this stuff, but they're not saying that, but they feel it. They feel it. And they're kind of like, this is getting ridiculous. If we are, and these are reasonable people, right? Okay, well, assuming it's all still legit, but if we're in our circle and no one in our circle has it, then why can't we meet with each other? It's like blah, blah, blah. So there's just so much garbage going around COVID, and they're going to try to, of course, say there's going to be a big wave, and other people, I know people have been testing positive for COVID. They just want to keep things going. It was okay to have the protests, but now that the protests are fizzling out, they got to go back to COVID. They're right. They don't have any more cards to play. They're in a very, very precarious situation. Now, one thing that I heard about, some of you guys can maybe check in on this, but maybe you heard back the Nova Scotia shooter. There's a big shooting up in Nova Scotia. A lot of information is now coming out that seems like this person was probably an intelligence agent, or at least someone who was connected to an intelligence agency. So it's kind of interesting because you're thinking like Nova Scotia, big shooting in Nova Scotia. Like, come on. Nova Scotia is known for one thing, the Trailer Park Boys. That's the only thing it's known for. And so now we have this situation going on here. So it was good to see that the bullshit meter that a lot of us had about that shooting is being validated. And I got one other thing I wanted to mention here before I go into the last, I had the last big piece here. We had, Donald Trump Jr. talking about Area 51, right? Hey, I wonder what's in there. We want to see what's in Area 51. Area 51, by the way, allegedly has a lot of the space tech, a lot of the extraterrestrial craft that we've been using to go into space that the breakaway civilization's been using. And then, of course, there was that earthquake in Tulsa, always interesting because there is a big underground military base there. Of course, the rally was also there. I'm not going to speculate exactly what that means because I don't know. But the last thing I wanted to say here is that we've been looking at the probes, right? The Department of Justice probes, okay? Durham probe, looking at Barr, right? But one of the places that we should be looking at, we forgot to look at for a while, is New York. Because the Southern District of New York, Manhattan, right, is one of the big criminal districts in the United States. Okay, and what was one of the things that the Southern District of New York had back in 2016? What was one of the things that they received, that they had to take into evidence? Do you guys know what was that? What was that very, very interesting object that the NYPD took under custody? Exactly, Wiener's laptop. Wiener's laptop. Okay. Remember, two of the cops who saw Wiener's laptop both died in mysterious circumstances right afterwards. Very, very bad stuff on that laptop. Very, very incriminating evidence, but it's been buried. And we have right now Berman, who was the current, or was the current district attorney, refused to step down. He refused to step down when he was asked to resign. And he was actually put in place, as far as I recall, by the court. He was supposed to be interim, and the court said that he had to stay as a district attorney. And then when the president tried to remove him, he said he wasn't going to leave. Right? This is not something that works. I mean, it's very clear. The Supreme Court just ruled on it to confirm it, but like they serve at the behest of the president or the attorney general of the president. So he can't stay in that position. So refusing to go just buys a little bit of time, right? I mean, you're going to get removed ultimately, and that's what's happened. But why fight a war? Why fight a battle you can't win if all you're doing is just buying a couple of weeks? My guess is that we're going to finally start to see what's on that laptop soon. That this is another criminal probe that's going that direction. So we'll see, though. I mean, you know me, I'm not trying to make any sort of timeline predictions, but I really feel like after the solstice and with the start of the campaign, I think now we're in the stage where we're going to start to see stuff drop. We've been in a lull. We've been in a lull for the last couple months, and I think that's going to change. So I am happy to take some questions. Let's see what's what's on the laptop. On the laptop was allegedly the stuff that was on. It was like blackmail on Hillary Clinton and his wife Huma. So basically, a lot of stuff with children, child sex trafficking, and of course, them being killed too. I've heard a lot of the stuff that we've talked about being leaked on the dark web with stuff that was allegedly from Wiener's laptop. Seems unlikely that's actually happened yet. Is Michelle Obama a man? No comment on that. I don't know. I've seen stuff. I don't have enough. I haven't spent enough time trying to investigate all that stuff. Has Flynn case shenanigans delayed things? I don't know, man. I don't know if it has. I think that everything's frankly going according to plan. The shifting of the equinox. It's happened last time. This happened was like when Jesus, during the life of Jesus. So we've had two lunar equinoxes around a solar equinox that happened on the solstice. This is like pretty serious astrologically speaking, and all of this stuff, if you accept the proposition that this stuff is progressing based on a more or less predetermined timeline, I think that these dates are pretty significant. So I don't think that anything that's happened is mostly not supposed to happen. Well, I talked about the George Floyd thing before. I mean, it seems very clear that it was a money laundering operation. I don't know whether his death was staged. Remember, the mannequin producer in Minneapolis was one of the businesses that got burned down. George Floyd and Derek Chauvin were both actors, pornographic films. They both worked at the same nightclub. So whether or not his death was faked, because remember, there's also some discrepancies with the video, whether or not it was faked or whether or not he was killed and everything else around it was faked, I don't know. But that's what seems. I mean, certainly the whole thing was orchestrated. I don't know if he was sacrificed as a result of it or not, but I mean, I do. Trump's going to remain in power next year, no doubt. I mean, look, I've said this before. Let's say that Trump isn't going to remain in power. Let's say that he loses the election to a guy who's pretty much on, he has dementia, doesn't have any idea what he's talking about. Let's say that that happens. Let's say that this ridiculous proposition happens. Well, then obviously, I mean, if that actually happens, then obviously this country is going to break up. Like, obviously, it's going to break up. There's no way that we would be able to prepare for anything but a fight after that. Canada will fragment, United States will fragment. There'll be civil unrest everywhere, and we'll be back to the 3D construct of having to fight to extricate ourselves from this entire bullshit. But I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, I feel very, very strongly it's not going to happen. I think it's good that people are aware of that possibility and that they're prepared for it. It's better be prepared. But remember, don't get so prepared that you get really engaged in the fight, because a lot of these people are just frankly programmed. I saw a domestic abuse case actually the other night, and the woman, she's a total bitch, and so it wasn't surprising when she got arrested by the cops and dragged off, blah blah blah. But I mean, the things that she was yelling at certain points, it didn't even sound human. And I'm really wondering. I mean, some of the more like spiritual oriented, esoteric people on Twitter have been commenting about this, but I wonder how many people actually are like infested with demons. Like, I wonder how many people who are doing these things are actually really demons that are doing them. Because some of the stuff is so beyond the pale and so bizarre that you have to start to ask, like, is it just programming, or is it like these people don't even seem like they're themselves? Something else is coming out of them. So, tweet a couple of weeks ago about the Schumann resonance. Can I talk a bit more about how to interpret? Well, so the Schumann resonance, I feel like I'm not going to do a good job with this, so I don't want to bullshit it too much. But the Schumann resonance is basically used. It has to do with solar activity, and so based on how that's moving, I think that more solar activity is good. I think that's right. Don't quote me on that, but that would seem to follow that. Based on what's happening with the Schumann resonance, there's a big connection to sort of the energetic cycles on Earth. So basically, based on how much energy the sun puts out in a given day, given hour, minute, it affects the course of events on Earth on what you would call the astral level. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting, and I don't follow it, but it does seem kind of cool where some people will put out stuff on the Schumann resonance when, I felt shifts myself. Like last week, there was a shift. I didn't know for sure. I didn't tweet about it because I was fasting. You guys remember I did a 91-hour fast, which is great. I lost 5 pounds of fat. Feel much better. Feel so much better as a result of doing it. But one of the things that was sort of acknowledged with that is, it was very difficult for a night to sleep. There's a lot of crazy energy, but I wasn't sure if it was me. So it was only when I got messages from people that I was like, yeah, that probably was a reset of sorts. Yeah, there is tons and tons of resolution going on. There's tons and tons of resolution, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful, which is why, like, when people get really negative, I just feel like they're just not tapped in enough with the deeper current, because there are things on the surface. Like, literally, there was 2 weeks where I really felt like, man, this is maybe even just one week where it was so bad. The week prior to June 5th, it was so bad that I really did not. I mean, I did not want to. I was barely on Twitter. If I went on Twitter, I felt like shit. The next week, it wasn't good, but you could start to get some modulation. But otherwise, it's been fine. Like, I'll see stuff, and this is how you know, because you'll see stuff. It's the same thing as before, but it doesn't affect you the same way. It's kind of like, yeah, because you can feel behind it. The energy isn't really behind it anymore. When the energy was behind it, it really feels terrible. It really feels terrible. So States would secede. Yeah, we'd have a total fucking conflagration, but it's not going to happen. Eric Trump is posting Q stuff. Yeah, I mean, Trump would always have Q people or the camera section of his rallies. So, I mean, they're always involved with it. They've always been involved with it. Drugs. What drugs are they on? I don't know what you mean. Mention Area 51 and an underground base somewhere having earthquakes. Yeah, well, there's an underground base under Oklahoma. I've heard that it was a munitions base. I don't know. I mean, honestly, guys, like, these periscopes started off really focused on kind of disclosing all like the bigger details about what's going on. There's a bit now that we're doing it once a week, and as things are moving along, most of you have a lot of the background at this point, and we're mostly just trying to understand what's happening in real time. So, there's a bunch of earthquakes by Area 51 a couple weeks ago. I'm sure there's more crap going on underground, but I don't know what it is. And I wouldn't feel certain that if anyone tells you they know what it is, that they could be telling the truth, but I wouldn't feel certain that they are, because how would they know? And even if they think they know, how do you know that they're not being told something different? Thanks. Yeah, I try to be positive. But I don't like delusional positivity, because there's a branch of like positive people who they just don't want to hear anything negative, and that's like fingers in ears, like everything's good. That's avoidance. But for me, I see that any time something happens, that there's a positive result that can come from it. And I'm not just being a morale person. And look, I have to be honest. I'm a human. Okay, I'm a human. There was a moment where I felt like, have things really just like, are they what's going on? Are they really going off the rails, right? But I thought about it, and I acknowledge that was a matter of morale, right? And that's the whole purpose here. And I didn't show it. I didn't show it to anybody, because if I'm here trying to put things forward for you guys, like, if you're a leader, you're not supposed to demoralize troops, which is why I get so annoyed at some of these fucking political pundits. People who are like, I'm here to support you. I'm here for your mindset. I'm here. Just like spread negative shit all the time. They make people feel like crap. They're parasites. They're honestly parasites. And then there's other people. Just negative all the time. They lose it. They lose their cool. If you, as a leader, this is for you guys out there, you're gonna have moments of doubt. Okay. Hopefully it's not. I mean, if it's a constant thing, you have to deal with that. But you're gonna have moments of doubt. And what's most important is that you don't show it to people on the field. I'm going to give you a little anecdote. I've been reading War and Peace, and I'm only halfway through. But in the Battle of Austerlitz, in the beginning, Prince Bagration, right? One of the ways that Tolstoy describes him. So he he's basically, he was the second in command of the Russian expeditionary force, I guess you could say, to Austria. A lot of you guys don't know the full history here, but the point is that the main Russian army had not arrived to support Austria against Napoleon. Only a small detachment under a general called Kutuzov. And his second in command was Prince Bagration. And so the Russian they had suffered some bad defeats, and the French had taken Vienna. So the Austrians and this Russian detachment were retreating to what would be the Czech Republic today, retreating north into the mountains of Moravia, right? Czech Republic is Bohemia and Moravia. So they were retreating to the mountains of eastern Czech Republic. Okay. But in order to protect the retreat of this Russian army, they had to send a detachment to basically block the French army, which was like a suicide mission, basically. And so Prince Bagration took his regiment, the Pavlovs, and a few other groups, and they fought this minor battle called Schön-Gebern, right, basically. And so, like, what Kutuzov said when he dispatched him, he said, if I see 1 out of 10 of them again, it'll be lucky. Now, in reality, many more survived than that. I mean, they lost all that stuff eventually. But with this battle, one of the things about Prince Bagration, that Tolstoy describes is that it's chaos, basically. Like, you'd have people who would, it's a battle. I mean, there's smoke everywhere. You have no idea exactly what's going on when things heat up. And so you'd have all these commanders underneath of him would say, we did this, and they'd go to him and he would say, very good, very good. And he would just be calm and, like, whatever happened, even if it was bad, he'd say, very good. And the result was this infectious confidence. He didn't show to any of the people underneath of him that anything was going wrong, even though he had no control over exactly what was happening at that moment, because it was too difficult for the most part to be able to redirect things. You could send, put the reserves here, right? Fine. But for the most part, things that were happening on the front line, he had no control over. But rather than freak out if something went badly, he would reassure them that it was okay. Oh, you retreated, like, everything's fine. And so what would happen is that they would feel like, well, maybe what happened is actually good for us. And so the troops would get re-inspired and they go back in the fight again. The point here is that as a leader, and look at Trump, Trump's a really great example of this. When have you ever heard Trump say that it's too much, things are going so badly, we can't handle this? He's never like that, which is why he's a good leader. But you have a lot of people who are literally just like, they're wimps. I mean, they're mental wimps. Or they're so bitter that they just can't get it together. And whenever something goes badly, they freak out. They get so negative about everything. And you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't show that weakness, because that is a really great way for your entire force, your entire support to fall apart. It's the way it is. Which is why playing the victim all the time isn't good long-term strategy, because it makes your troops weak. Well, that was a long monologue. Take a drink. All right, just a couple more here. Do I think Austin's Q? I don't know. But I've said before, all the stuff with Tyler being an AI seems to fit into Tyler being a quantum computer, and Austin being Austin in the future being the one who will be programming Tyler in these sort of protocols to deal with what's happening now. All of that fits. I posted a video before. You guys can check it out. I think it really reinforces the argument. I see the Q people, as usual, continue to be. I want to block anybody who says that they think Tyler is Q. I don't think that's a really good way to operate, because it is very clear that Austin has had some interesting things to say about McCain in particular, but just that he is. Elon Musk vouched for him. So if Elon's good, Austin has to be at least good, right? If not Q. So I don't know. I don't really care, to be honest. I will continue to look at all sides and not fall into this sort of groupthink paradigm until I feel really certain about it, one way or another. So I think Tucker Carlson is probably the best bet right now for after Trump. Tucker Carlson's the only one that I've seen who, but I have to say this: Tucker Carlson is a pundit, so he speaks very well, but I don't know if he knows how to run things. He's an ENTJ, so he maybe has some natural gift, but Trump is maybe not as eloquent, but Trump knows how to run things. He's done a great job. I don't know if Tucker is going to be the best fit from that standpoint, but we got a long way to go before that happens. So we'll see how it plays out. I don't know much about the earthquake. I just know that it happened. Regular kind of middle one. Yeah, inevitable. ET-17 said he isn't. I mean, whatever. He's just a guy. He's got a big following. It doesn't mean anything. Use your own brain and think about it. Come up with your own conclusions. That's the way you should. Majestic has pretty much said that he's Q. Majestic just backed his project. So now you asked this before: is Vladimir Surkov working with the Democrats now? I don't know who Vladimir Surkov is, so I'll look into that. If you want to send me some links about it, I always appreciate that in the DMs because, as you guys know, I have a lot of stuff going on. Yep, more and more videos every week. ET craft activity. I don't know anything about Sasha Stone, so please send me information about that because I have no idea what that means. The name sounds familiar, but I don't know what it is. Yeah, Napoleonic Wars were basically, I mean, it was equivalent scale in Europe to a world war based on the population. I mean, with the invasion of Russia, France lost 500,000 soldiers. That's pretty substantial considering the populations of Europe and France in 1812. In fact, Napoleon lost because of that, because the manpower couldn't be replaced. Q Twitter's cancer sometimes, said the cash cab guy was Chauvin. Yeah, I mean, Q Twitter is so. I don't think there's a lot of discernment. There's a lot of like hype, a lot of hope, a lot of hope, and I like the hope. I like the hope, but it's sometimes blind hope, you know. Ex-advisor for Putin. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I really don't know anything about it. But I would say that even though I know Putin's done deals with the Democrats, Putin, I would imagine, prefers the Trump side of things because the deep state, the cabal, looted Russia. Putin came to power basically throwing the deep state out of Russia, and they hate Russia. So even though they probably work together in some capacity, I'm sure Putin is quite happy to see them gone. So, all right, guys, I got to eat some dinner. Thanks for stopping by. We'll talk soon.